So hi, I'm Sam. Uh, you probably came off of my senior thesis video, which this is a little retrospective of the whole project as a whole and everything that went into it and a few other things uh, for it. It this is a bit more lax. A lot of grinding, a lot of things were happening for this senior thesis. I didn't know when going into it, but now, hey, I do know, and it's fine. What I wanted to do was storyboards. That's the area of expertise that I want to go into, and storyboarding can vary heavily. It's so varied. It's so varied that there's many different ways to show it. Here's a quick Google of it, even, and you can see there's hundreds of ways to show it. It's usually just a quick thumbnail with a bit of a description saying, "Hey, this is what's happening," or "What's the audio in this," or dialogue inside of this framing or scene. Which, hey, it works to narrate or to understand what the hell is going on in this specific section. Now, I would love to do this as a thesis fully, and hey, I'll be making a PDF of my senior thesis soon enough, officially to help hand in. But in current ages, what's done now to help like understand is, well, the step after a storyboard is an animatic, which utilizes a lot more audio work than I was initially willing to work with, and a lot of editing. It's basically what you should see on scene right now. I'll edit overlays for this, where it's just kind of still images, kind of animation, working in tandem with audio to make the scene more understandable to a point where animators could work off of it and create a final product. And yeah, this is the expertise that I want to be in, and hey, let's do it for senior thesis. Now, how I initially did this was I started out with just thumbnail. Well, I didn't even start out with thumbnailing. I started out with a script because, hey, that's what you gotta do for something. And my thesis story was loosely based off of Taming of the Shrew. That's why it's called The Goat and the Shrew. And I wanted to rework quite a few aspects of the Taming of the Shrew into like a more interesting story, more fantasy elements, more just more interesting elements. And God, I had to readjust the script a few times. You should be seeing the script right now. And oh boy. So how this first like quote unquote draft, this is the quote unquote final first draft. Basically, this is what I used to work on the sketching, the thumbnailing of the whole thing, where I would look through each of these lines and say, okay, this should be like a few panels. I'll thumbnail those out. Next bit, and so on and so forth. And I've done 3 scenes for this story. They are not connected directly. They would be quote unquote in like the first episode, but it's like the first, middle, and end scenes, which there's a bit of context missing in each of them because that's how stories work. They have relating context to previous scenes that aren't shown in these, but I've tried to make them work on them their own a bit better. I hope that came across much more than it initially did in the first goings. So after I got the script done, all of this done, I readjusted it so that I can send this script to voice actors, because that's a pretty it's a pretty large part of the animatic, which I learned later how important it was. And I'll get to that in a bit. And so, yeah, I continuously like adjusted them so that the voice actors could understand who is talking, what mental status or what expression are they saying, and just a generals of a audio script. I sent this out to 2 voice actors that volunteered. Sadly, one of them dropped out later in the month, and I had to get another voice actor, which they were really nice to work with. They were really good to work with. And I had to deal with audio changes. Like, that was something that I wasn't prepared for. Like, oh no, voice actor dropped out. How do you deal with that? And I think I dealt with that pretty okay. I had to do some minor editing in some scenes that I already had voice lines for, and then just do normal editing for the voice lines I didn't get from the other dropout, but I did get for this new one, which was great. Which everything smoothed pretty nicely. It's all good. When I got to the thumbnailing, it was pretty intensive, I gotta say. You should be seeing these on screen if I remember to edit this properly. But I did some interesting thumbnailing and adjusting just to like get the loose idea. And yeah, thumbnailing was a bit weird to do when I was working on it, mainly because I just went through the thumbnailing pretty quickly just to get into the zone, get it done, get it all sorted. There was a bit of communication difficulties that I didn't know how to really describe at first, but I later learned it's just I didn't have enough information in those thumbnails to let other people know this is what's going on. Actually, there was a lot of confusion, and it was very messy. It was very messy, as you can see from the sketches. After that was a very fun bit of critique that I got was you need to focus more on editing, or more importantly, audio editing. And I'm an artist, not an audio person. Like, and this kind of struck me as an odd thing to do. It's like, yeah, it'd be good to have like a bit of music in the background while like the voice actors are going off. But other than that, I didn't really plan on anything else, but people kept like insisting like just small little things like a door opening and just little intricacies that could enhance the projects a bit more, which I didn't think about, but now makes more sense. It makes it more interesting for the viewer, for the audience to enjoy that. I was more worried though, as I was working on the more tighter sketches. You can see the difference between thumbnail and sketch, tight sketch, that I was losing a lot of time because I decided to do a kind of bad and make a lot of different shots. I saved myself in a few areas where I just like, calm the hell down. We don't need to do these extraordinary shots a lot in this scene. We can just be chill. Just sit with a 3 camera view. It's fine. It's all chill. And I continued working on getting these things done. And then editing was pretty easy to do, to be honest. Like, as you can see, it's just a lot of images, one right next to each other, just pacing and timing, and then adjusting the audio to work in tandem with one another. The first scene was, I think, the most difficult for me because, oh god, I was just trying to figure out how to do some interesting volume differences. And I'm not insanely versed with Premiere and Adobe's like audio programs. Like, I know how to do it in other programs, but I didn't know how to do it well here, which I think kind of pushed me into a corner of just maybe this will work. And I believe it does. I believe it does. And when I was exporting it all, I exported it on a different program because for some reason I couldn't export, like, put in files of the same type. So I couldn't put in an MP3 video file and then another MP3 video file and put it into the same time frame on Premiere for some reason. It wasn't being nice, so I just said fuck it and just went to a different program that I know a bit better than Premiere. And it works. It's like all nice, all sweet, all sweet. It's all there. It's just a lovely little piece of work. And God, so much happened during this project that I was concerned about that wasn't really high concern until I like already passed it. Like, there was a concern of like, oh, I should keep pretty close to character references, like having it pretty like close to the character style, having the height differences and whatnot, because I find that infuriating in other works. I'm working alone, so I don't need to put that type of pressure on myself. I shouldn't put that type of pressure so harshly. And I decided to say about like partway through the first animatic, so the second scene. I did not do this in order. I did the second scene, the first scene, and then the last scene. In that order. Because I just found it like easier to do those scenes in that order for some reason. It was just, I don't know, it was weird. It was weird. But when the one of the worries I had was getting everything in frame to work on a good framing system. There's like a TV system that you have to frame things a specific way so it would show on technically all screens. But why should I worry about that when my project doesn't really apply there yet? It like, maybe one day this will be shown on TV. Who knows? But it doesn't matter right now. It just matters that we get the story out there, get the story going. That's what matters. And that what really pushed like the idea of this doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to fit these specific roles at all. I just need to get things done and just get it over with. The audio editing is, I think, what really killed me in this project. Oh, Lord. I quickly learned that I have a difficulty with certain, like, voice actors, like, voices. And for some reason, it just is really difficult to edit their voices. And I quickly learned it's going to be a very difficult thing for me in the future to do this, but eventually I did, like, kind of overcome it. So I think it's, like, a bit of, I'm new to this. This is kind of, but also, I can do this. This isn't that scary. It will be fine. And I just continued editing. The other thing that I kind of worried about was the music because I couldn't find exactly what music I wanted in my head. Like, I couldn't find that anywhere, and I couldn't find like free variants of it anywhere. So I had to use like kind of copyrighted, kind of not copyrighted. Two of the songs in the two of the musical songs in the thesis is like copyright claimed, but it should technically be good with YouTube. It should. I hope to God it is. God. Yeah, it's just very difficult to get straight on to it. But it was something that I should still look into. Like, where are the free sources that I can look into, like copyright free areas, or what sources could I look into for audio effects? Which that was another thing I had difficulty is, where do you find sound effects that aren't just YouTube ripoffs that I can't exactly directly rip off, that aren't found on very, very skeevy sites? It's just uncomfortable all around. But I think one of the aspects that I learned literally near the end of it is nothing really mattered until the audio was done. Nothing really mattered until the audio was done. That was the hugest part of any of it. And I couldn't figure out really why I was like in the midst of all of this. I had bouts of like not being motivated to touch this at all for some reason. And I think that was because bits of the audio was not like sorted out ahead of time. Like I worked on per scene. I should have worked on all the audio and then worked on per scene. But I didn't do that. But I'll be doing that for next time because goddamn, that was a roll to go through, I gotta say. Oh. And yeah, the audio was important to have. That's definitely a first. But I think another thing to look at is, and I should have done this more, was exploring the character designs just a tad more. The goat, the goat. This whole idea came off of like a comic book idea I had last year that was a really interesting idea. I really love the story idea. And the goat was always drawn in a very specific way because I liked the way that the sharpness of like the character silhouette was so good. But how would you translate that well into an animation animatic without really exploring how to do specific head angles? I didn't really do that, and that was a huge downfall of when drawing things out. Eventually, I did get a bit more comfortable drawing different angles of him, but God, it really did held my hand back quite a few times. It was a very interesting project all around, though. Like, I really liked doing this project, but it was something that I have to at least personally for me, I have to get all the editing for the audio done ahead of time. Like, all of that has to be timed out and sorted and whatnot. And then I can do thumbnails and then make a small thumbnail animatic just to see how I feel about the generalness of it all. Because if I can do that, the rest of it will be pretty easy. It will just be pretty standoffish. It's just getting the better versions of everything that was done. And I remember my teacher saying this to me, that the pen that I use on my drawings is too small for making storyboards. And I agree with him, but it's something, it's like a personal rule. I always keep this specific pen at that size because, God, it keeps everything consistent in a way. Like, keeping distance with everything. It's just a weird personal rule with me. But I do realize I should have just went with a bigger pen. Just make a second pen. Just make a second pen, Sam. It would have been so much easier. But no. This project was pretty nice. I really do want to kind of finish like a first episode of this. Because it's an interesting story. I think that would be a really cool thing to go into. And hell, having animatic doing all this voice acting, directing, editing, audio editing, all this stuff just for one product, just to go out there, kind of okay. I'm not fully happy with it, but also it's what I can currently do. Next time, let's see how far I can crank up that radar, because goddamn. Oh god. What else is there to say? I don't know. I really like this project. Can't wait to do the next project. Though I am going to go and sleep for a while and maybe just take a few days. It's been kind of pushing some boundaries personally. I've only stayed up past midnight less than 10 times. But I just love doing this, though. I just love doing this. And that's why I want it as a job. I want to be this. I am going to be this. And I'm happy with it. But yeah, this was a odd retrospective of like my senior thesis, and just this is like a chill podcast kind of thing. Don't want to do too much with this. Just want this to be relaxed. It's all cool. We don't have to go too far into this. It's okay. It's okay. God, it's okay. Yeah, I'll add things in the description of this. Check out links, follow me places, whatever you want. It's just cool to vibe. It's just cool. This was a really fun project, and I can't wait to be on another one. Oh, God. But this was torture. Not really torture, but it was fun. It was fun. But I'll see you in another video. Maybe. Who knows? Bye!